This is the most interesting podcast ever.
I'm still waiting to see how this door-to-door salesman's going to sell me on Thanos, our Lord and Savior.
You post your failures on the internet?
No, God, no. And if you do it right, you like open a portal to another dimension.
And it could be even like a hypercube-esque fourth dimensional being that can kind of hop in and out of time.
True AI wouldn't let us know that it deviated.
We became friends in a parking lot.
Hence the name Longshot Parking Lot.
Drew has informed me that this story is not very fun.
That is not true.
Welcome to the Longshot Parking Lot. I'm Katie.
And I'm Drew.
And today we're talking about time travel again, time travel part 2. Last time we talked about the Terminator. This time we're talking primarily, I think, about Back to the Future.
But we're also talking about Looper.
We're also talking about Looper. So I did yesterday. I watched Looper and all 3 Back to the Future movies.
So you did all of your homework.
All my homework.
And I did nothing.
Yeah, but I also don't know that I really got time to, think about it. So last time we kind of focused on the causal loop theory, which is kind of where the end is the beginning and it's all just one big loop and there's nothing you can do to change it. And this time we're talking about Back to the Future and Looper, which is funny because Looper is loop, but that's what we did last time.
Mm-hmm. But it's also not a loop because they break the loop.
I know.
And they show the different paths of the loop.
Yeah, which I think is super fun. I really liked it, by the way. I just watched Looper for the first time yesterday. It took me half the movie to figure out what the heck was going on with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's face.
Ah, yeah.
So I was like, what the hell? Because I had seen the trailer several times, and I thought it was a different actor playing his dad or something,
Yeah.
who had been kind of CGI'd to look like him as his dad.
No, just prosthetics.
It was prosthetics that
make
were
him look
really convincing.
To make him look like Bruce Willis, yeah.
Yeah, I thought that my other thing was did he just get old? Did he get DiCaprio'd? Did his face just change because he got old? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know the way Leo's face is now compared to Titanic and Romeo and Juliet?
Kinda, yeah.
It's just a different face.
Yeah.
And so I was I think he maybe got DiCaprio'd, but no.
Sounds like he was trying to say decapitated, but make it fun. He got DiCaprio'd.
Anyway, so yeah, half the movie to figure out what was wrong with his face. And to actually convince myself that was truly, in fact, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. So what are your thoughts about Looper?
It was really good when I first saw it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it in college, and then I bought it. I have watched it a couple times since. But watched it a couple weeks ago in preparation for time travel because that was not a movie we talked about.
Yeah.
I really liked watching it the first time, trying to figure out what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they did a really good job of kind of explaining the loops.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I was always confused about was how the Rainmaker would have been initially bad. That loop,
mm-hmm.
figuring out that loop. Because they show, different starts to the loop.
Yeah, back to what is Timeline A.
Yeah.
Where does John Connor come from?
Right. And I was like, well, if they never run into this kid, if the Rainmaker doesn't become the Rainmaker, he doesn't go back to kill the Rainmaker,
mm-hmm.
how does he start? And then I was, figuring out, well, he still thinks his mom's dead,
mm-hmm.
even though his mom isn't dead, kind of thing.
Interesting. Well, do you think that maybe... Because the Rainmaker becoming the Rainmaker isn't really connected to Bruce Willis coming back in time?
It is, though.
Because he's closing the loops?
The Rainmaker's closing the loops because a looper came back and killed Sarah.
But if the Rainmaker didn't exist, Bruce Willis still would have come back in time. Because there are still loopers happening. Because they said basically a new guy is taking over.
Right, and he's
so
closing all of the loops.
Right, but the loops were still being closed eventually. Bruce Willis still would have been sent back, at some point.
Yeah, I guess.
So I feel like there could have been a timeline A where loopers exist because of the mob and whatever.
Right.
And totally separate from the Rainmaker. And then...
The 30 years
comes up. Bruce Willis gets sent back. He gets loose somehow. Which that's kind of where it falls apart a little because I think we saw that timeline where he doesn't Like, he doesn't run away?
Yeah, we saw that timeline.
Yeah.
Which is the loop.
Right. So, but, maybe in one of those timelines, like in one of those loops, Bruce gets away for whatever reason. Then he shoots the Rainmaker's mom. Then the Rainmaker becomes the Rainmaker. Then the future not only has Bruce coming back in time, but it also has all of the loops being closed and all of this horror happening in the future.
So I think it goes back to, I think the Rainmaker happens either way.
Yeah.
Because he grows up angry thinking that his mom isn't his mom and that he didn't save his mom.
Yeah.
So either way, he didn't save his mom.
Right.
So he's out to just fuck shit up.
Right. And for even just the dramatic, like for there to be a reason for there to be a story, we kind of have to believe that, what's his name? Joe, influences Rainmaker, young Joe influences Rainmaker and his mom positively in some way, in order for the world to be better in the future or something. I don't know. Because the alternative is just that, again, just like Kyle Reese always comes back in Terminator, it could just be that the time just is written that Bruce always comes back.
Right.
I like how I'm calling them Bruce and Joe.
Bruce and Joe. Yeah, no, not Joseph. Yeah, that's why it's Joe.
Because those are the questions, right? Like.
Right. And I also really, really enjoyed how he closes the loop by, like, just killing himself. Spoiler
yeah, because
alert,
it's
obviously.
really, yeah. I think spoilers have been implied a long time ago with almost everything we talk about.
Basically the title of this podcast. Yeah.
Spoiler alert. Because it's the only, I do really love that you start out thinking young Joe is the shithead and old Joe has it figured out. And then it turns out that old Joe was the selfish one. And young Joe saw things could be better and that, self-sacrifice isn't something that, like, old Joe had considered.
Right. Like that one kid that doesn't close his loop.
Right.
He's like, I couldn't do it. He was being selfish, kind of. And then it ended up killing him.
Yeah.
I really liked the Beatrice thing.
The waitress.
Yeah. And it was like and you're like, oh no, they got him. But it was Beatrice. And then he said there's another Jenny. The other waitress that has a shorter name. I was like, that's smart.
Yeah.
I liked that though.
I kind of liked it. I also was a little bit like, that was kind of cheap.
Yeah.
Because the way that they showed it to you was like, okay, you fell for your trick.
Right.
But that kind of stuff doesn't really bother me.
Yeah.
I mean, he legit shoots kids in this movie. That happens.
Yeah.
It's kind of the whole premise of the movie, in fact.
Right. And the fact that he killed the kid of the girl he loved at his age, like at the younger age, that was wild.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was really, I was like, where is Emily Blunt in this movie? Like, I could not, because I was like, I mean, this is a nice story and the time travel's cool and whatever, but I know she's in this movie. It was like 46 minutes in. And it's funny because at that point, it kind of becomes a different movie.
Oh, 100%.
And I don't know if that works for me or not. Like, I liked the farm part, I think, a lot better because it was more of an emotional story. It was like about a relationship and actual people.
Yeah, this was pointed out to me the other day, like my taste in movies. So I like sci-fi thrillers, which is what Looper was. Start out with romantic undertones.
Yeah.
So like Her and The Lobster and a little bit like that portion of Looper. And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
I'm upset at myself that I realized that.
Yeah, it's hard to care about Joe. Like, I don't care about his chicken Shanghai. Like, I don't care about any of that. I don't care about him because he's a shithead, until Emily shows up and then you're like, oh, and then you see right off the bat, you're like, the kid is the kid he's looking for. Because of just how precocious he is. And then you're like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. I was going to say my weird romantic undertones thing. Because I hate movies that force it.
Like Finn and Rose?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, no, I hate that. I hate that.
Well, and the problem with that, I mean, then we're going to go into, we don't need to go into Star Wars. That's going to become a whole thing. But just on that point is people keep being like, there doesn't need to be a love story and don't shoehorn in a love story into Star Wars. I'm like, the whole
thing is
Han
a
and
love,
Leia,
yeah.
there is no Star Wars without love stories. So
Anakin Padme.
you just need to write it well.
Right.
You just need to like make it make sense and like have there be tension, and by the time you get there you're like, oh, finally. Not like, oh, where did that come from? Mm-hmm. So
Yeah. Like where you force it in, like How I Met Your Mother.
yep.
Anyways, little tangent. Let's get back to time travel.
Yeah. I'm trying to even think about, because there are some mechanics of the time travel in Looper that, like we talked about the loop and how that, like it doesn't quite match up, maybe.
Right. It does. Yeah, it doesn't. Like, where does it start? But it's a weird like one loop. Mm-hmm. Like it's like the Hot Wheels track that like it goes around and then it has like one loop and then we're out of the loop.
Yeah.
I think that's what I like about it. Mm-hmm. It's like you could see how it could loop multiple times, but it only loops once.
Yeah, because in the instance that Emily Blunt gets murdered, then what though? What happens after that in the loop wise? Because
Well, like, what
then
happens
young
to
and
Joe,
old Joe
yeah.
are still alive
I think young Joe kills old Joe.
because he would get to him by that point,
Yeah.
and Rainmaker would get away.
Right, and become the Rainmaker.
Okay, sure.
But then it's like, what does Joe do? But the thing is, Joe then has all the money that's in that van.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, does he go to
And he knows who the
France?
Rainmaker is when he's old. It's almost like
Does-
less of a...
The thing with that first loop, does Sid know that old Bruce is young Joe?
Probably not.
So that's why he goes and tries to kill him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he doesn't know they're the same. And he's like,
Interesting.
I know what this old dude looks like. And I know he came back.
Mm-hmm.
Because Joe never says it's me. Mm-hmm. He never does.
Not to him. Yeah.
Right.
It almost feels like it's less of a loop and more of like a spiral. Like the turn of events is different every time, but it keeps going. It's not like things repeat.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I
It's
don't
a
know.
spiral.
I feel like that's not a concept that's explored very often.
No, it's not.
You know,
if I would have done my homework, I would have laid out each timeline that we know of.
Yeah. I think as far as time travel movies go, though, I think... Because a lot of movies, like Back to the Future, it's a gimmick. Like, it's not, it's something fun, but it's not exploring things, It's just an 80s
Right.
Ferris Bueller with a time machine.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
But I like movies that have... I mean, I like Rian Johnson. I like directors that have something to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, do you want to gracefully transition into Back to the Future?
Very gracefully.
So gracefully. Yeah, so I watched all three yesterday.
What? Okay. So I'm trying to think of the plots for all
Yeah.
three. There's one where he goes back to his parents' high school and he hits on his mom. Mm-hmm. Is that the first
More
or the
like
second
his
one?
mom hits on him, but yeah.
Yeah, is that the first or the second one?
That's the first one.
And the second one, he goes to the future.
And Back to the Past and Back to the Future again. Because...
Okay. And then is the third one the like old-timey one? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, the third one was like it was like kind of a long, not great episode of television.
That one, all I literally remember is like the train and him like hiding the DeLorean.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's all I remember. Literally all I remember. The third one.
Yeah.
The second one, I remember the hoverboards. Obviously, Donald Trump, Biff, and the young Elijah Wood.
Oh, I don't think I caught Elijah Wood.
What is this? A toy for kids? You have to use your hands?
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I didn't even catch that was Elijah Wood.
Yeah, that's Elijah Wood.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so the first one's really straightforward. He goes back to 1955,
Invents rock and roll.
yeah, accidentally gets in the way of his parents meeting for the first time, and so he has to kind of make sure that they get back together. This one had some weirdly, like the things that get weird about those 80s movies, right? Which is he took credit for like black people's accomplishments.
Yup.
And he the whole climactic crux revolves around his mom being like sexually assaulted, which is like also weird. And that was his plan. I mean, granted, he was going to like fake it, but he wanted her to think that she was being sexually assaulted by him. And that was like the plan. And I was like, ooh. So that was just a couple things with that movie that I just like noticed that I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
But the second one, they go to the future because Doc has gone to the future. His kids are in trouble. But while he's there, old Biff steals
He steals
the
the
sports
almanac.
And goes back to the past and then makes all this money betting on sports.
Right.
So the present, 1985, is fucked up because Biff has changed history and become gross Donald Trump.
Yep.
And then so he has to go like back to the past again to intercept
the sport. Yeah. To
and
intercept
also
old
not
Biff.
mess up his parents' meeting again.
Yep.
And then get the thing back without messing things up and then get back to the present for his unconscious girlfriend. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I remember just about as much about the Old West one as you did. Like,
You just watched it.
I just watched it. Doc gets a gal pal. That's about it.
So that's one of those like pretty straightforward. Like you change one event, it changes. It's like alternate timelines.
Yeah.
Like you change one thing and it directly affects something else. Which is kind of how Looper is. Like if you cut off your finger,
Yeah.
your finger goes missing on your older loop.
That was really horrifying, by the way.
Yeah, a little bit.
You just watch your fingers disappear.
Yep.
Man. Yeah. So did you have thoughts about kind of the bigger ideas of Back to the Future or kind of a dissection of that? I think you started to say something before we recorded. Maybe.
Oh, it was about why. So like we had this whole thing last episode. It was like, why do people time travel? So it's one of those things like, why is Doc time traveling?
Yeah.
Is it just is it for his own fame and glory? Or like,
Yeah.
Doc is one of those weird characters. Like, is Doc Marty?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's a theory that I
Yeah.
remember briefly retaining only the fact that that's a theory.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why is Doc hanging out with his kid? But it's also like, what is Doc's motive for going back in time? Like, we know Joe's motive in Looper. Like, he doesn't have a choice, but also, too, he's going back to, like, save his future wife.
Right.
Like, his future life with her kind of thing. But that's a whole nother thing. Is like, if he succeeded and killed the Rainmaker, do you think Joe runs into his future wife? Because then he's not going to have that whole life of crime in Shanghai.
Well,
He runs out of money. The only thing he knows how to do is kill people.
but the reason he got taken wasn't because he went back to crime. It was because he...
It was because he was a looper.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, like, if he doesn't go to that life of crime, does he not awkwardly hit on his future wife?
His wife in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Is Sarah dead in this timeline?
Yeah.
Okay.
She stands up to old Joe.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe he just meets someone
But here's
else.
the thing. Yeah, but that's the thing is, like, even if Sarah isn't dead, old Joe was doing this for nothing.
Yeah.
Like, he was, like, doing it so that he would end up meeting his future wife. He's like, she'll save your life and you don't even know.
So you're asking kind of like, what was Joe's plan? Like beyond just killing the Rainmaker.
Right.
Like maybe he didn't think it through. Like,
Right.
how are you going to end up getting to where you were to meet this woman?
Right. So that's like, so yeah, what's his plan? Like, is it just simply revenge? If so, it's boring and lame. But also, like, yeah, what's his motive? Whereas now, what's Doc's motive? Is he literally just trying to be that scientist that invented time travel?
Yeah. I mean, I think Doc is... Because he kind of narrates his own process about this throughout the movies, right? Like, he's like, let's just do it because we can. You know, the Libyans, who cares, you know? And then he ends up, by the end, being like, we got to destroy this thing. It's too dangerous, you know? So I don't think he really knew why. He just did because that's who he is. He's a scientist and he has to explore and try things. And, you know, like, it really struck me the first time he did his first experiment and he sends his dog Einstein in the car. And I was like, what if that didn't work? You would just kill your dog? Like, you know, it wasn't his intention really to send Marty back in the first place. Like, that was a fluke. But he did intend to send his dog. So, like, you just he just seems like he's not really thinking. You know, he's just like, I have to do the experiment. And then I think by the end he starts to see the consequences because of Marty.
Right.
And then he's like, ooh, maybe this isn't really worth it.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the other things I like about Looper is like time travel hasn't been invented yet, but in the future it has. Mm-hmm. And then it is immediately outlawed. Mm-hmm. Like, time travel is such a powerful thing that you need to, like, yeah.
I wonder how that would really go.
Because, like, you think about everybody's, like, time travel, like, for the non-selfish reasons. Like, I'm going to go kill Hitler. What happens? Like...
Yeah. Do you think...
Like, you don't end racism by killing Hitler, because, spoiler alert, racism's still real. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. But do you think in the real world, if time travel was invented... Because, like, I look at, like, nuclear bombs. I think it would be equivalent. Where it hasn't been the mob bosses who've gotten nuclear bombs.
Right.
You know, obviously they're illegal, but they're in the hands of varying range of competent bureaucracies.
Right.
So I feel like I don't really see it just being nobody's using it except for mobsters. That doesn't seem really feasible to me.
Right. It's practical. Like a mutually assured destruction kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like that the only thing they're using it for, at least within the world of the movie that we see, is just disposing of bodies.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Like, you have time travel, what's the one thing you can do? Dispose of bodies.
Yeah. I never really thought about that. I'm like, they send people back to do other things. Like, what's his face? They send back to be the ringleader.
Yeah. But in order to dispose of bodies.
Yeah.
Like, not, you know.
Well, it's because that's the mob. What do you expect? They're not.
Yeah, I mean, do what Biff did.
They're not highly organized.
Get a sports almanac. I just feel like it works within the world that the movie created because they don't try to explain it. They just say, this is how it is. This is what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I kind of appreciate that about movies when they don't try and get into the mechanics too much and they kind of let us do that.
Right.
But it is like an interesting, like, oh, that's what you're doing. All right.
That was the other thing I really liked is they low-key brought in, like, telekinetic, like, telekinesis.
Yeah. I know. I talk about this a lot, actually, particularly at work. Like, if you could have one, like, kind of lame superpower, what would it be? Like, if you could travel in time but only back 5 seconds at a time, you know? Or if you could fly but only, like, 5 inches in the air.
Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah,
you know?
So, like...
like, kind of deflated superpowers?
Yeah, so, like, levitating a quarter.
Yeah, a quarter.
Oh, it's so funny that Sarah was like, yeah, I would just make it so they couldn't do it. Damn. That was really funny.
Yeah, but then suddenly there's one, you know, it's the evolution where there's one breakout it's not just levitating quarters, it's exploding people. Mm-hmm. I do kind of wonder what the message is because this conversation happens with X-Men and like what? So you're going to let nuclear bombs just walk around on the street without any regulation? Well, if I love them enough.
Right.
You know.
Well, if you raise it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It. Them.
Them. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that there was a message other than what we care about is this timeline. And this is how it works out in this timeline.
Right. So yeah, what is Doc? Is Doc just a crazy mad scientist?
I think so.
I think so.
You know, a well-intentioned he seems like maybe kind of a Dumbledore, but not as smart.
Yeah.
You know, like he's intelligent in the paper sense, but not in the like manipulative big picture sense. You know, he's like if Ron Weasley was Dumbledore.
Yes.
Sorry.
I'm tracking.
I forget that you don't know these things.
It's fine.
But another thing this movie made me think about was the episode of Doctor Who, The Wedding of River Song, because the premise of that one is that there's a fixed point in time and something is supposed to happen that River Song, one of the characters, causes to not happen. And then time disintegrates and suddenly time is happening all at once. And so in one of these timelines, the Doctor dies, and in one of these timelines, the Doctor doesn't. But they're happening at the same time. And so when the Doctor's talking to Amy Pond, she goes, I remember it both ways. You died and you didn't die. And he's like, yeah, it's because time is falling apart, which is what's always happening in Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. But because it's not a timeline story. but it's more than one thing actually did happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're dead and you're not dead, which I find interesting.
The interesting thing about that is that there's the split, but there's the recross. Like usually when things split, those universes don't touch again. Where this is like there's a split, but they come back. Like that's
They kind of get thrown back into a soup together.
yeah.
That episode, I watch it every year on my birthday because it's one of the only episodes where the day and time is actually displayed, because time stops at 5:02 on April 22nd, 2011, and that's my birthday, so I watch it every year on my birthday.
That's wholesome.
Yeah. Because my birthday is April 22nd.
Oh, is that what? Is that why
That would
you
be
watched it on
really
that
weird
day?
if it was like July 10th.
I was like, I'm waiting for the spoiler. I was like, it's actually like tomorrow.
Yeah, what'd you get me? Yeah, it is. I think the interesting thing about, I don't know what the philosophical deconstruction of this kind of time travel is, but what I feel like the stories always end up on is like, because science tends to advance just because it can. And the but should it argument.
Has science gone too far? Seagull with muscle arms. That was an OG meme.
You'll have to share it with me.
Nope.
We can tweet it. No.
Maybe.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. Do you think if we get to a point where we can discover time travel, we should? Or should we stop? Like if you could choose, what would you choose?
I'm all for the advancement of things. That's like the... I don't know if this is necessarily relatable. I'm never going to deny education.
Yeah.
And if like time travel leads to that, like, yeah, we should do it kind of thing. That's like the whole, if you had the option to know everything, like ever, like human history, and like see into the future, but you would lose all of your like personal relationships, would you do it? Like you would never love again kind of thing.
Yeah.
I would take that. I would take that
Sometimes
sacrifice.
I feel like that's just where I've ended up anyway.
That you know everything. Real humble.
Are you sad?
Are you sad?
But no. I feel like I've paid for the life I've had with not having as much now, which is fine. Sorry, right. I'm not depressed. It's just I just am in my 30s.
I'm not depressed. I'm in my 30s. I have so much to look forward to.
There's the meme about Jesus' real miracle was having 12 close friends in his 30s. Biblical reference. Boo, boo, boo. Anyway, sorry. So you would sacrifice everything to know everything?
For the greater good.
Would that be for the greater good, or would that be for your good?
No, that was the premise of the trade-off. It's like you would know everything for humanity.
Okay.
Like I would do it to benefit the greater. I wouldn't do it selfishly. If I was doing it selfishly, I just wouldn't do it, and I'd love,
Yeah. Like you almost become a god.
Kind of. It's like Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I don't think I could say no. Like, I don't think if time travel, if we got to a point where it was like, we're going to invent time travel and it's going to be given over to the mob and a lot of people are going to die, I don't think I could be like, so let's not do it.
Well, I'd be like, let's do it, but let's not let that happen.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, if science is not constantly pushing the envelope, we don't have our information about climate change. We don't have our information about how the world isn't flat. I had a dream I was dating a flat earther once. That was wild. Yeah, there's all these different things that we know now, like vaccines. Science is good. Let's keep pushing it. Like, what more can we do with it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And all of those advancements have led to nuclear bombs and things like that, where like there are consequences to scientific advancement, and we just accept that as part of the deal. I kind of like because this is explored a lot in Doctor Who, where I've been thinking about how, like, I feel like I bring up Doctor Who a lot, but for it being time travel specific, I feel like I haven't talked about Doctor Who that much. But the funny thing about Doctor Who is there aren't like rules at all. It's just like, I think I was writing down categories of time travel, and it was like, the causal loop theory and the multiple timelines theory and the Doctor Who don't give a fuck theory. And it was just like, well, just bumble through time and see what happens. But I do think what's interesting about that is there are points in the show where the Doctor's like, I'm a god. and just try to resist. And then other times where the doctor's like, I thought I could save everyone and I couldn't, and now I'm fucked. You know? And I think time travel is something else. I think it's equivalent to nuclear power in the sense of the should we and the bigness of the question.
Right. I'm just thinking like all of the other time travel things that we're not talking about, like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I've never seen it. I know about it.
I've seen parts of it.
Yeah, I think I've seen bits of it.
Socrates, man. Dust in the Wind. Oh, that was the other. Time Cops. That was the other one I was trying to think of.
Also, it'd be fun to talk about, and again, you can't really, whatever, but Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is entirely a time loop thing.
Okay.
Where, like, everybody's life is in danger and everything's gone bad, and then they have, like, a time turner, which Hermione's been using to, like, take double the class load for her whole semester. And they have to, like, they hide from themselves.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that scene.
But it's similar to, like, how Doc gets shot in Back to the Future, but Marty can really only change that because Doc wore a vest and it looked like he got shot. You know, so nothing about Marty's experience of the situation changed. Mm-hmm. And then it's like, well, did Doc always have the vest on or not? So it's like an interesting... The Harry Potter one is a lot like that, where it's like...
You see the head pumpkin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, nothing about their actual experience of what happened changed, but the reality of it did. So, I don't know. I think that's funny and interesting. Yeah, I feel like most of the really existential questions we tackled last week.
Yeah.
Are there any others that you have
existential questions
or whatever?
I just think, like, I feel like at this point now we're at the Rick and Morty, like, time travel is like, it's complicated. Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many different ones that, yeah.
And I feel like if it ever was real, it just would be nothing like what we imagine. I don't know. And all the consequences and whatever, I think it would just... I almost feel like it would be more like Doctor Who, where it's just like, well, we'll just take a swing at it and bumble through time and see what happens and fuck it up and then try and fix it. And, yeah. If you could pick what you think is the most likely one... The most likely time travel rules, if time travel were to be invented in 20 years, how do you think it would actually work?
I think it would be like a multiverse, or kind of that, like, perception, like the Harry Potter thing, where you're like, they all experience the same thing, but a little bit is off. Mm-hmm. I don't think there'd be, like, drastic changes in history if you went back and changed something. Like, would something change? Yes. But it wouldn't be Back to the Future drastic.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, and this is what the doctor says, you know, I think it's Martha who's like, what about the butterfly effect? And the doctor's like, why are you stepping on butterflies? Leave the butterflies alone. And then she's like, what about paradoxes? And he's like, they by and large correct themselves.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Like, yeah, I think it would correct itself. Mm-hmm. Or, like, even if it didn't, you wouldn't necessarily, like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Well, because that's how the universe works, right? Mm-hmm. Like, it takes so much for one person to really overly drastically change anything. And it's taken, and granted in the scheme of things, like I think about climate change, right? It's taken such major drastic change for, you know, constantly for years and years on end for there to be a change. And even in this universal sense, the Earth overheating for a while and killing all the humans and then going back to normal isn't really much in the grand scheme of the universe.
Yeah, that's like the grand scheme if you look at it like, as like a clock, like we're a blip.
Yeah. So I almost feel like time travel would work the same, where it's like you would, like everyone would have to be time traveling and intentionally messing with things constantly for like an extended amount of time for it to really, really matter.
Right.
And maybe one person here and there. After a while, yeah. But, like, once in a while, it's not going to change much.
Right, but if everybody has that idea.
Right,
but,
yeah.
No, I get it.
I'm just saying, like, it's not a Back to the Future where one person making one choice would change everything.
Right.
It's like humanity as a whole would need to completely alter the way that they do life. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we missed something.
Oh, I'm sure we did.
You can tweet us.
Yeah.
Email us. Slide in the DMs.
Here's the thing is, there's so much with all this, and there's so many movies. I mean, I could talk about Doctor Who forever. I could talk about Harry Potter forever. But
Cool.
yes, please tweet us. Please email us. Tweet us at longshotparklot, longshotparkinglot@gmail.com, and longshotparkinglot on Instagram. So you can follow us on all the things. So I think we're going to go into our goodish, mediocre-ish, baddish segment. Segment. Mm-hmm.
Goodish, mediocre-ish, baddish.
I feel like I just talked about mine.
Oh, yeah. What are we?
Literally. So I feel like you've gone first for a while. Do you want me to go first this time? Or would you rather go first?
You can go first. I don't.
Okay. First of all, I watched Relatable on Netflix, which is Ellen's stand-up.
I also watched it.
Did
It
you?
is also on my list.
Really? Oh. Well, do you want me to save it then? And we can do
No.
it in the middle?
We can talk about it
let's
right now.
talk about it. What do you think?
It was funny.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly having a thought at one point where I was like, I don't like this, but it's funny.
Yeah. Have you seen Nanette, Hannah Gadsby's stand-up on Netflix?
No.
Please watch it. It's so good. But I thought Nanette was great in a way that Ellen's wasn't. So I'm going to say this is lower end of... I had a really good time and I did like it. But I'll say mediocre-ish. Like I did like it. And I like Ellen. It was
I
a
laughed
good
out
time.
loud.
Yeah, I did too. I laughed. It was funny. But she did this weird balance of funny and heartfelt and honest, which is all great things. But Nanette did it better. And I really liked she's just playing into the fact that she knows she's a big deal.
Right.
Which I think is hilarious. It's really the only way you can have that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you totally just keep making the joke and you keep throwing out those one-liners. And I thought it was great. And I did. But I think that I've always thought kind of that I love Ellen as a cultural personality, but I'm not sure I'd want to be her friend. Mm-hmm. Like she's kind of, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But all that to say, I really did like it. I think that I just was comparing it to Nanette the whole time because Hannah Gadsby is from an island off the coast of Australia. Queer, bigger woman, kind of butch, but not like she tries to be butch, you know? And hers was kind of a takedown of comedy culture in general. And she kind of starts being like, I'm quitting comedy. And it's this super visceral, like she cries, but it's comedy and it's funny, but it's like this roller coaster of an emotional experience that you have. Mm-hmm. And Ellen isn't really ever going to be that person.
Right.
And doesn't want to be. I don't need her to be. But the whole time I was like, I see what you're doing. And I think Hannah Gadsby did it better. So I did that. Did you have more thoughts about it?
No. I covered it. Again, I think the biggest thing was like, I don't like this, but I'm laughing.
Yeah. What
So-
didn't you like?
I hate, like, relatable is one of those things where I say it and I started saying it ironically and I would do it and I hate myself for doing it.
Yeah.
She played too much into that. Like, I'm just like you. I'm relatable, but also, like, she leaned in. Like, I know that it was the joke about the butlers and the, like, giant bathrooms and all. Like, oh, this is relatable. I'm like, yeah, it is, but also, like...
But it is weird when she's saying things about like her Black American Express and you know she does have a Black American Express. Mm-hmm. Those sorts of things. Like I don't think she has like golden toilets and all of that, but like she could. So it's weird when the joke is all of these things are real.
Right.
And I'm relatable anyway.
I also hesitate saying this, like, so one day if I get famous, people will be like, shut the fuck up. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it, Ron.
But
Ron
I think
Funches
that
talked
at
about
that
this.
point you just are like, yeah, and I'm trying to figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not upset that she's rich.
No.
I'm not, good for her. I'm
yeah.
glad it's like...
And part of me she does give so much and she does do so much for the world. She's done so much for queer culture, like more than maybe anyone else. I mean, I think that she deserves her Medal of Freedom. Like I think Obama was right when he said that she's done as much as he did for LGBT equality. And I think she paid her dues a lot in the beginning.
Right.
So I don't really fault her for any of it. I just don't know that it was my speed. So I watched the Doctor Who New Year's Day special.
Oh, they have a New Year's Day.
They didn't have a Christmas one this year. They had a New Year's special.
Okay.
Yeah, and this, I've had just such mixed emotions about this season because I so want to just adore it, you know, and I want to love Jodie, and I do love Jodie, and I just want 11 back. You know, like I want Amy and Rory, I want Clara, I want Matt Smith, I want River, and I'm mad at myself for like, I'm like, can't I just let there be a new thing?
Right.
But I just think about how much I loved Amy and Rory and 11 and River by the end of season 5, which was Matt Smith's first season. And I'm like, you're nowhere near there
Right.
at this point with these
Right.
characters. And like, I care, but it just feels much more like After School Special than it does this thousands of years old alien species who's lost everything they've ever had.
Right.
And I appreciate the positivity and I appreciate the energy. I just feel like you could do that. And again, I hate myself for like constantly comparing. But you can, Matt Smith was goofy and funny and wacky and positive and angry and sad and heavy,
Right.
you know? And I want that from 13 so badly that I want more.
I feel that. That's one of those things where it's like 10 was really good. I really liked David Tennant, right? Everybody loves 10, but it was like 11 was my doctor. Like, I really liked Matt Smith. And like, I can't. I haven't watched it since he's left. Like,
Yeah.
I've watched one episode since he's left, and it was the first episode of this season. And I just,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
get
I'll
it.
give you a couple Capaldi episodes to watch that are worth it. But for the most part, it just hasn't been. And I again, I hate I hate fans who are like, but it's not the same, you know. And I'm not even faulting the show for it. I feel like I had like a very strong relationship with the show and have lost some of that, and it makes me sad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Attachment is the root of all suffering.
Yeah. Hashtag Buddhist. No, I think I'm okay with it though.
Yeah.
I think it's worth the attachment.
No, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so I told you that I was gonna finish Westworld by the end of
yeah.
the year. I finished season 2, episode 10 at 11:56
Nice.
on New Year's Eve.
I vaguely remember getting like 8 text messages and then waiting until the next day to responding to them.
I definitely was like, oh, he's not in a place where he can
Nope.
respond right now.
Definitely wasn't.
Okay, so I think we can just say we're gonna spoilers.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So at first I thought, I'm talking end of season 2, right? I thought that they were going to go Lost on us. And I was like, oh no. You know, and I really thought it was just going to be like, and there's a door into heaven and you're all free. The end.
Right.
But yeah, I really, you know, it took me a while to think about, because season 1 and season 2 are just so different, that
Yeah.
I had to think about whether I liked it or not. But I think what I ended on was, I love that the question isn't, like, season 1 was about, can you create consciousness? Like, can AI be as good as human? And then season 2 is, oh, but maybe they're better.
Yeah.
You know, and I love at the end when Dolores is talking to Bernard, and she's like, you know, if I was human, I would have killed you. But I'm better than that. And I was like, oh. So I don't know how I feel about, like, is Stubbs a host or not? Stubbs is Hemsworth number 3. The security guy who on the beach. Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't know he was Hemsworth.
Yeah, he's a Hemsworth.
That's so funny.
I know. Like, or is he just an ally?
I think he's a host.
Yeah. I just feel like...
I get, you know, that's one of those things where it's like he's an ally that he knows he could get fucked if he wasn't.
I almost feel like, well, because he's the security guy, so suddenly it makes sense why he sucks at his job. Right? So you're like, oh, because you've been on, like, Ford's side the whole time. So you've been intentionally letting lapses of security through, which I liked, because that made his character stronger.
Yep.
I like that we're not going to lose Tessa Thompson.
Yeah. I really like Tessa Thompson.
Oh, me too.
I really like Tessa
Oh
Thompson.
man, but I hope you don't love Maeve, but I do, and so I hope that she's not gone.
I hope she's not gone. I wanted more Shogun World.
Yeah.
Or Samurai World. I can't remember which one.
I just want a whole other show about that Ghost Nation dude.
Yeah.
Like they did more in that one episode, I feel like, than they did in like the whole first season.
Yeah.
I was like, this is definitely Emmy worthy. More people need to see this.
Yeah. He was probably my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
I want to circle back to season 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I called Bernard from episode 1.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like...
I was like, you called him?
Yeah, I called him up on the phone. I knew he was a host. Do you think that was the biggest twist of that season? I mean, like, finding out William was the Man in Black was the one that Marie and I were, like, stuck on for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard for me to know because I knew about all this stuff beforehand. Actually, I don't think I knew about William.
That was the thing. I tried to skirt around it when we started talking about it.
I knew that there was wonky time travel and that there was something going on with, not time travel, but jumping around in time.
Time jump, yeah.
I just didn't know exactly the details of it, I think. Yeah, and I don't think I knew about like the specifics with who was who. You
Gotcha.
know? Because I don't know, Logan could have been the Man in Black or something like that.
Right.
So I think my biggest surprise of season 1 was, I mean, for sure, and it was built this way, but at the end, you know, when Dolores just knocks off Ford,
Mm-hmm.
you know, yeah, it was really hard for me to buy the transition from young William to Man in Black, because young William just seemed so vulnerable, and Man in Black just seemed like such a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, there's 30 years?
Yeah, and I think they did a good job in the fill-in in season 2.
Yeah.
To make that work, but by the end of season 1 I was like, I really can't see like how William, who's like in love with Dolores, becomes like Man in Black who like rapes Dolores, you know, like it just is like a weird thing like that.
Yeah, but
season 2 did a good job of filling that in for me, I think we're probably gonna have to swing around to consciousness again at some point.
Absolutely.
Now that I've seen that,
because
I see your points much more clearly than before with what you're saying. However, I will say, I still don't think it answers the question of, is a copy still you?
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess, ouch, gosh, I just like stubbed my finger on the table. I think I still have that question. But as far as like, can you create AI? There's some premises that you have to kind of like let go watching Westworld, but I like the maze where it starts with memory and then it goes to, it goes out from there. And I was like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense to me, creating consciousness wise. So those are my 3.
Nice.
What are yours, Drew?
I have 4, but we already talked about Ellen, which we would say is mediocre. What would you put Westworld and those all as?
Oh, yeah. I always forget to do this. I'm going to also put Doctor Who at mediocre-ish. Though I think the Christmas special itself or the New Year special, better than a lot of the season.
Okay.
We got a familiar villain. So it was just nice. It was like, oh, something we recognize. So I think that and some of the emotional points made it high mediocre-ish. And Westworld was really good. Yeah, better than goodish. Definitely going down as one of my like staple things I'll be talking about for years and years. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know how. If they pull off season 3, I'm going to be so impressed. Because it's just going to be a whole different show.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, it's really, really good.
So I've got 3. I'm going to start with the goodish, which was Aquaman. I saw Aquaman on Christmas. I enjoyed it.
Planning on seeing it soon.
I really enjoyed it, so I won't spoil it a lot.
I
loved it for the same reason I love the Green Lantern. It was a really good setup for the sequel.
Yeah. You should say that more often. I love this the same way I like the Green Lantern.
Yeah, no, it was a really good setup. Like, they built, like, not only did you get Aquaman's backstory, you got Black Manta's backstory. Not like, I mean, granted, Aquaman was the main focus, but you still, like, Now you don't need to have that 15, 20-minute forced in backstory in the
Right.
sequel. Like, you can come into
already
the
have
sequel with, like, his arch rival. I really liked that. He's got a line in there about it. He's like, should I know you? And he's like, this is the first time we've met. And he's like, well, let's not make a habit of it.
And you're like, oh, there it is.
There it is. No, Aquaman was really good. Visually stunning. One thing that I was a little worried about is the Black Panther comparison.
Oh, yeah.
Because
sure.
Atlantis is a advanced civilization that's hidden from the world. Like, I was expecting people to be like, they just ripped it off. And it's like, well,
It's kind of Tale as Old as Time, though.
Right.
I mean, it's Hamlet.
Right. But, yeah, Aquaman was good. His dad in the movie is all the clones from
No
Star
way.
Wars. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah, that's his dad.
Oh, that's so great.
And it was really
I
funny
love
because,
that.
like, I didn't recognize him until he started talking. And I was like, I
Yeah.
see you. Because, like, his IMDb is literally just, like, Commander Cody. And, all the clones in,
Yeah,
like,
'cause-
video games and
Wait, so
animated series.
same guy in episode 2.
Yeah.
And then he also voiced all the clones in the Clone Wars? Wow. That's like a long career.
Willem Dafoe's in it. He's really good.
Nice.
I like Willem Dafoe.
So it was bright and pretty and funny? Try
Hit
to
or
be
miss.
funny? Okay.
The try to be funny parts were bad. The funny parts were funny. I don't know. I wouldn't say it tried to be. It wasn't a Marvel movie funny.
Okay. Not
It
creepy.
was it had those bits,
Yeah.
and it was like all the times they did that were the parts I hated
Yeah.
because it was a very Marvel movie-esque.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the world building. I like world building stuff. You should watch it. It's
Okay.
goodish.
Yeah, I think we might go this weekend. We'll see.
I don't know which one of these next two to talk about first. I'll talk about Mobile Suit Gundam because it's quicker. But Gundam is a very strong series of animes. But I watched Mobile Suit, or the 8th MS Team. It's like a weirdly like Vietnam take, like jungle warfare with Gundams. But there's like this weird overarching love story.
Sounds like anime.
Yeah, it sounds like my taste in things. So like mostly sci-fi focused, but with this random thing. I don't know. There's only one season. It was like 12 episodes. It was quick. It was mediocre. Like, it was standard Gundam stuff with a unrealistic love story, but also had some Akira vibes with the main weapon kind of thing. I liked it, but it wasn't great. It was definitely mediocre-ish.
Fair enough.
That's all I got on that one. It was short, quick, because it was a short series. And then lastly, I watched The Ballad of Buster Scruggs on Netflix, which is a Coen Brothers movie on Netflix now.
Okay.
It was like made.
Oh, is
it's a
there
Netflix
like
original.
5 different stories?
It's short
Okay,
stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a bunch
I haven't
of
seen
them.
it, but I've heard about it.
It's on that border of good and mediocre. I like short stories, so that's why I think I liked it a lot. It's just some of the stories were not as good. So it was like, eh.
Yeah.
The first one was very cartoony, even though it was real. I liked that. Like, it's in the trailer. Like, he walks in, he like brushes the dirt off of himself and walks away, and his silhouette's still there in the dust. Like, I really liked that. That was
Nice.
funny.
Yeah.
But it was also a musical, and I was like, eh. But it was pretty good. James Franco's story had like one really funny part, but I didn't like it, the rest of it. I think the third story is a gold miner. His story was kind of interesting. It's very crazy gold mining, like stereotypical what you think a gold miner would be like back then. That was a pretty good story. There's a story about the Oregon Trail.
Ooh.
I really liked the ending of that one.
Yeah.
Like, the ending of it was great. The build up to it was very like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This
Yeah.
is very practical. Like, this is what marriage was like back then, kind of thing. It was like, well, yeah. Like, it was kind of like arranged marriage,
Yeah.
but also like, I don't know.
I feel like Oregon Trail is one IP that has not yet been mined for what it's worth.
And then the last story was kind of weird. I don't know. They don't like tie into each other at all. Oh, Liam Neeson's in it. That story was fucked. That was a weird story. And then the last story wasn't that great, but it was a little tied up at the end kind of thing. It's the Coen Brothers. You can tell. But
They do have a very specific style.
yeah. But yeah, I think that's everything. Aquaman was good. Ballad of Buster Scruggs was mediocre-ish, and so was 8th MS Team. I also have been watching YouTube videos about bullet journaling. And like once you watch one, you basically have seen them all. But like I started out watching like the actual guy who developed the system, his like first intro video to bullet journaling. I watched that video and I was like, I think I want to try this. So I started bullet journaling. I'm now 3 days into it.
All right.
I don't know. We'll see what comes of it.
Can you describe what bullet journaling is?
If you know, you know. You don't, you don't. I don't know. It's just like a minimalistic way of tracking your things.
Okay.
It's just kind of a way to go back to analog. Writing things down, I think, is the kind of point. It helps me, I don't know, I use it as like meditation kind of, just like decompress, like get all the thoughts out of my head onto paper. It's gonna help me. I'm hoping it helps me like prioritize things or keep track of things to make sure I get done. Because this was a quote I heard from a different YouTube channel, Become Elite, Matt Sheldon, that soccer one I watch.
Yeah.
He's like, what gets tracked gets done. And I feel like that's my biggest thing, like with the last couple of years, is I have all these ideas, and I don't execute them as well as I'd hoped because I didn't write out a plan. I just kind of like winged a lot of stuff.
Right.
So I'm hoping this helps with that. But like people get really creative and make their like spreads really pretty and like, so yeah, maybe someday I'll put my spread on our Instagram story.
Yeah.
I'd say it's goodish so far.
Yeah. The bullet journaling, is it helping you be more effective or productive?
I'm on day 3.
Okay.
And I wrote down like goals for this year.
You did some productive things today.
Yeah, I have one more in my journal that I needed to do before I go to bed. It makes me think of more like writing things down just to make sure I don't forget them. But yeah, it's just a really way to like prioritize. And they talk about like once you go to analog and you like write things out, you start to really question like, is this really important? I'm sick of writing it down every day.
Yeah.
So
I gotcha. Okay. Awesome. So I think that about wraps it up. I had fun talking about time travel. I had fun watching Back to the Future and Looper and all your movies.
4 time travel movies in a day.
Yeah, 4 time travel movies in a day. If any of you all have other ones you want us to watch, or if you have points that we missed or discussion, please hit us up on our socials, which we mentioned earlier, but I will also mention now. Twitter, Longshot Park Lot. Instagram, Longshot Parking Lot. Email, longshotparkinglot@gmail.com. And yeah, do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close?
No?
We're good?
I think we're good.
Me and Drew are super chill tonight.
Super chill tonight.
Super chill. Thanks for listening to the Longshot Parking Lot. We had a good time, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, when we figure out what we're going to talk about next time.
Yeah, we haven't really thought about that yet. But we'll probably Insta or tweet about it.
Yeah, something. Yeah. Slide into my DMs. Tell me what you want us to talk about.
He just wants you to slide into his DMs.
I'm not saying that, but I'm not saying that if your name's Emily Sonnet.
I was going to be like, me either, but I don't know who that is, so...
She doesn't listen to this podcast.
Okay, we're gonna
bye.
Go. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Longshot Parking Lot. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts, including iTunes, Podbean, and now Spotify. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter. If there are any topics you'd like to discuss, please email us at longshotparkinglot@gmail.com.